Hey guys, Matt Montanez here again with another session, actually another lesson on how to use Avid Pro Tools. This is lesson 3, Basic Mixing and Detailed Editing. Today I brought open this track by TK Meza. It's called Glorious, and I would actually like to first start off by thanking a friend of mine. His name's Chizzy, great producer, amazing producer actually, and he actually had me engineer the song and mix it, and it actually got featured on HBO Girls. Super blessed to be a part of that, and I love the record. So it was a very fun record to do. Multiple instruments, quite a bit of instruments actually, a lot of vocals, key points in here to bring up that we got. So it's going to be real fun to show you guys how I organized this session, color coded everything, edited the verses and the choruses, group editing, and really dug in deep into the session. Another person I'd actually like to thank, because they actually taught me a lot, especially in editing, to get real detailed about it, is a friend of mine named C Minor, a super dope producer and engineer as well. And he actually taught me a lot on how to edit stuff the right way. And it was really cool because when I used to listen to what he was doing, I would hear the song at first how it was. And before he even started mixing, I was like, wow, dude, like it already sounds like 1,000 times better. Like, oh my gosh, it sounds like a brand new song already. And all he did was edit stuff and really tighten up like vocals and choruses and things like that. And it really made the song sound great. So he taught me a lot, really took the time. Me and him would do Skype sessions and really made sure I understood how to do this technique. And I'm going to show you guys how to detail edit today. Very cool guys. They're awesome. Follow them on Twitter, Instagram. Chizzy, you can follow him at your boy Chizzy. You can also go to his website, yourboychizzy.com. And C Minor, you can follow him at C Minor is the key. Very cool dudes. All right, so the first thing we're gonna get into here is actually editing wise. And the first thing I like to do before I even edit is organizing my session the right way. And the way I organize my session is I like to put all my instruments on the top, all my vocals underneath the instruments. And I don't know, that just made me comfortable the way it just kind of flows and makes everything work that way. So I'm gonna do that right now. So I believe the way I actually brought in these instruments is I already did that because originally we had a 2-track here and then we just had the vocals, and I already imported the instrument stems beforehand. But I like to organize it even further than that, like drums, guitar, synths, etc., etc. So let's get the drums together first. So we got 808, crash, cymbal, hi-hats. Here's horns, keys. Here's a pad. Here's a kick. So I'm going to move the kick up. And let's see what else we got. We should have snares down here. Snaps and snares. That's part of like percussion and drums. So let's move that up. Then we got crash, cymbal. Let's move our hi-hats up because, well, actually they're fine with the cymbals. But I like to have my hi-hats right after the snares and snaps. I like to have my hi-hats there. So let's do that. Let's move on down. And here's another crash down here. And then we got a low synth and dark keys. So I'm going to move this crash up here next to this crash hit. Okay. And then let's see, after that, so it goes drums, percussion. Then I like to have like keys and strings type of sounds. So here's like pianos. So let's move that with keys. The pads, I like to keep the pads with the synths. And actually I like to keep them underneath my synths because I feel like they're more ambient noise, so I don't worry about them till near the end. My rises and my effects, I like to keep those together, and those are actually at the very end. So actually white noises that come above those. And then I got some dark keys here, which is going to come up above my synths there. And then I got a low synth here as well. Also, I should mention too, if you guys want to hear the full version of the song, because I'm not going to be mixing the full song with you guys today. It'll take way too long. It'll be in the description below. It actually might be in there already, but when the video uploads to the channel, it'll be down there too. You can check it out on Spotify and SoundCloud. So I got my instruments organized there. So now I like to organize my vocals a little bit. So it looks like way down here I got my verses. Here's verse 1, verse 2. I like to bring those to the top. right under my instruments. And real quick, just because I want to make sure I don't get confused, which I won't because I've already done this session, but I like to highlight all my instruments. And for now, I like to color code them yellow just so they stand out. It's like, hey, dude, these are all the instruments right here. So I'm going to do that. I can delete this aux track because it's actually not doing anything anymore and I'm not going to use it. So then after I move my lead vocal there, I like to move my next lead vocal there, which is the chorus and pre-chorus lead vocal. So that goes under there. And let's see what else we got here. I don't need this aux track or this mic aux track because I won't be using them. So let's delete that. Let's move down a little bit. I don't need this mic. Or this ad-lib track is blank, so we can delete that as well. Contain alternate playlists. We don't need it because we won't be using it today. Let's go down. We won't need a click track, so let's delete that. And this is empty. We can take that off. We'll leave the reverb and delay for now. I'm going to show the send so we can see the reverb and delay there. I'm actually going to get all the inserts out because I like to work with all the inserts and all the sends showing. That's just my preference. So we're going to do that there. Then the next thing I like to do, because the way I work with Chizzy here, he already has a lot of stuff routed, going to like the lead Vox comp and to like the background Vox comp. So he always has a second one there. So I like to get all the ones that say 13, 14. Those are usually his lead Vox comps. And I like to move them up together. And this is just because of the way we work together. But yours might be a little bit different the way you're going to organize. But I like to do that, and I'll show you why in a second once I split everything off. So here's more 13, 14, and it goes through all these here. And we're going to just hold shift, click the next one so it highlights all of them, and then drag and drop. Oops. So we're going to do that there. Let's see. Let's go down a little further. 13, 14 is right here also in audio 8. And then we just have those ones as 15, 16. So all these are 13, 14. So from there, I like to organize it a little bit further. So I like to keep everything that's 0. So that's what he has in the center. I like to keep all that together. And it looks like we're not using anything here. Let me zoom in a little bit. Yeah, and it looks like there's nothing on these 3. So I'm just going to delete them out. And let's see. So this is the pan, the one on the right. So those are the ones that I'm talking about that I like to have them in the center, and I group them all together while I organize this session. Everything else is left and right except for this one. So let's move this guy up. And here's another one in the center and another one in the center. And we'll move those ones up as well. So those ones look good. Let's move down. These are all left and right, left and right. Okay, so from there, I like to listen to see what I'm working with, but I can delete these out because these are muted and we won't be using those. I like to listen to see what I'm working with because usually since we're working with a singer here, it's different notes. So it'll be high notes, mids, and low notes that we'll be working with. So keeping that in mind, I like to see what these are doing, what these are doing, and what these are doing. And so I'll just click solo and just play it back and see what we got.
What do we have to lose?
All right, so that sounds like the normal tone in the middle there.
Hey!
So that's more like just an ad-lib, so I'm just going to move that down. So I'm assuming this whole track is ad-libs. And it's just because they all look exactly the same. So you got a hey, and this is probably like another hey or another kind of ad-lib type of deal. I'll play it for you.
Hey!
Yep, another ad-lib, and then it's the same thing on these sides as you can tell. Same exact thing. So those are ad-libs, and I'll just label that ad-libs, which will just be AL. And we can unsolo that guy. And let's move back up here, and that was normal. So let's see what this guy is doing, because if this is normal too, we can combine them onto one track, and it'll save us a track and save us processing power and everything else like that.
Rebels off the leash.
Okay, so that's more of an ad-lib as well. So I'm going to bring that down. And it's to come way down here with this other ad-lib guy. And we'll leave it there, and we'll just put it as pitch, shift, ad-lib. And let's see, we got one more guy over here, which is this one, I believe. And let's see what this is doing.
What do we have to lose?
So that's more of a lower tone, and I like to organize it where my lower tones are just underneath and the higher notes are underneath my normal notes, or my middle notes there. So I'm gonna just keep it there, and let's see what this guy's doing. This guy just lingering here. So that's just kind of like an ad-lib thing, but it sounds cool. Since these ones are the same and it's just one floating here, I'm actually going to combine it here and delete this track out so I can save some processing power. I don't see why I would have it just hanging out there by itself. Let's see what this guy's doing here.
Brown bag sipping.
It's more like another little ad-lib guy, so I'm going to bring him down here, and I'm actually going to combine it on this track just to save us processing power again. And another thing to keep in mind too is you look at the volumes and they're 0. All right, so let's move this one up too. Let's expand these waveforms so we can see where it's going. Look at that. You see how they overlap? So I actually cannot do that. So it's kind of cool to check it too. So let's just undo that and leave it there how it is. All right, so let's move up, and everything is cool. Okay, so the reason why I like to keep all my zeros in place and everything and move my 13 and 14s together, because since the way that Chizzy works and everything, he already sets his volumes kind of even or kind of like around the area he likes it. And, you know, so it's kind of the demo version that we have here, but then we're going to mix it to the final version. I'm going to close this universe, by the way. So if we listen to it, he has levels pretty set cool, and then we want to make it sound even better.
Planning for the fall, we're dancing on the wall till we rule it all. What do we have to lose? Tangerine.
So the level set are really, really cool, but the one thing why I separate them like that is because then I start splitting them off into their own sections. So they have their own faders like VCA faders, or one fader to control a whole group of things. For example, you can see how these are all basically one group of vocals with layers, backgrounds, etc. So we got that, and then here in the chorus the same thing in the hook. So it's all like that. And so I like to separate it even more. So usually I make more of these Vox comps and separate it. So I'm going to do that for you, but I'm not going to fly the plugins over because I'm going to be changing the plugins anyway. So these inserts I'm going to take off, and that's what that is. And to bring up this menu, let me cancel and I'll do it again. You hold Option Shift and click D, and it'll duplicate that track. And then you can tell it what you want. If you want to keep the playlists, automation, insert, sends, and the groups, everything like that. And then it tells you, do you want to insert it after last selected track? Yes, that's what I want to do, so I know exactly where you place it at. But I don't want the inserts, so I'm taking the inserts off. I'll leave the sends, that's cool. And I'm going to make about 3 more of these. So it's the same thing. They're duplicates, except there's no inserts. And then as you can tell, they all are routed to 1314. So we are going to switch the routing on them too. So this first one, I'm actually going to move it for these lead vocals here. And it's going to be like that. So that was just the lead Vox comp, okay? And then I'm going to break it down to these ones here. I'm going to separate all these. So I'm actually going to put one underneath these 4 here. So I'm going to grab one, and I'm going to set it underneath these 4. And the reason why I'm doing that is just to keep it organized, so I know this one fader is going to control these. And the way I do that is I take off this input, that bus there, I'm going to highlight these, I'm going to hold Shift because I'm just doing it to these selected ones, I'm going to hold Alt Option because I want it to do it to all the selected ones, I'm going to click this, I'm going to click Track, I'm going to find what this one is called, which is the track 40 right there, Vox Comp 011. And it will be right here, Vox Comp 01, and it's going to be the one because it's not going to read the duplicate like I had explained in the first lesson. Since they're all lowercase, it has to have that capital letter to show it in the name there. So I'm going to click it, and then it's going to switch the name all to this VO011, VO011. So it's all going to that one now. And now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to break all these off together. So I'm going to grab one more, move it up, and I'm going to put it here. Switch this one to no input, select all these guys, Shift, Option, click this, Track, and it's going to be 1, 2, and here it is, 1, 2. And you could also see too is when you go to Track, the last one you have is Audio 8 Dupe 3. So when you go to Track, you can see here it says Audio 8 Dupe 3, so it's going to be the one right underneath. and then it switches them all. So now they're all controlled with that one fader, and then these ones here, I'm going to move them all to this other fader. And the reason why you do that is because if you have them all set to the same bus, then they're all being sent going to those buses, and it's really going to mess everything up. It's basically they're all going to be loud 4 times because you're sending them to 4 different places, and you don't want that. So basically I'm just going to do that real quick like that. So I'm using my sends, my inputs and outputs, and I'm sending all this stuff to their correct spots just for mixing purposes. So I guess I should talk about inputs and outputs a little bit, right? So yeah, so your inputs is basically going into this track. So what's going into this? So if you set this to your input 1, like your mic 1 on your interface, that's basically your microphone going into this track. And then your output is usually analog 1, 2 or mains 1, 2 or something. That's the stereo, you know, like your speakers. So that's usually what it's doing. Oh, duh, I forgot to click no input here. I bet everybody's like, dude, you have to take the no input off. Sorry about that. So now they'll switch and create a new bus. So yeah, so then the output's going out to something, okay? So basically we don't have no input here on these tracks because we're not putting anything in there anymore. It's just what we got. And then we're sending the outputs, we're sending them to this track. So now this one has an input because they're all coming out of here and they're going into this track, and this one's coming out into the speakers. So that's what that's doing. All right, so we got all that. So basically that's how I would organize this entire session, and I do the same thing here, but it looks like nothing's really overlapping, so I'll just leave them all going into here. If it sounds too compressed like these ones, because it's a big group going into this one compressor, I will split it off though. So I'd duplicate this and then make another split. All right. So after I got my whole session organized like that, I like to color code everything. And the way I do that is usually I keep my bass up on the very, very top. I'm actually going to delete this because we do not need this 2-track anymore. I keep my bass and my 808s at the very, very top. So I don't believe I had a bass in this track. Let's see. I believe it's just the 808. Yeah, so the 808 I'm going to keep on the top, and I always label that one a brown color. And I'm actually going to put out my template video next week, or actually this week coming up. Actually tomorrow I'm actually going to put it out on Monday. Man, I can't believe it's already Sunday. So tomorrow I'm actually going to put it out on Monday, and basically it's to create templates. So for example, I have one with just my color code. So if I send my sessions to like my intern or something and I need them to color code something for me while they organize my session, then they could bring in this template. We can take all that off. They can bring in this template, and it has the way I color code everything. So like I have my bass here, and it's this brown color. So they can click it, they can move to the top, hold shift, command and click, and then when they open the color code, it'll show the colors that I'm on, and I like it to have that brown. Then I have my drums, which is kicks, snares, and snaps, and those are usually my drums, and I always keep them yellow, and it's the same yellow that that one is, and it shows right there, boom. So I'm going to delete this color here and this color because I do not need those colors. Then I have my my percussion, and that goes all the time after my drums. So it's going to be hats, crashes, cymbals, tambourines, anything that's just percussion, and I keep those orange. And then from there, let me delete that one out. I usually have guitars. I don't believe we had guitars in this session. Let's look real quick. Yeah, we don't have no guitars in this session. So I'm going to delete my 2 guitars, but as you can see, they're green. And then for my keys, I have my keys here, and those are just pianos, and those are this purple color that I like to have. So my keys are going to be purple. So it's piano, piano, all these keys. And it'll be purple. And then you can see that I have a horns here, and for my horns, I always just do it as my strings color. My horns and my strings are always the same color, and I always group them the same because when I send out stems to Chizzy or the label or whoever needs them, then I send them, I have to bounce them out with, I do them with the VCAs, and I always bounce the horns and the strings together. And then I got my synths, and my synths, I sometimes, I would say probably 95% of the time bounce them out with my effects. So I'm going to do that and group them the same color here. And then as you can see, my vocals and my background vocals stay the default color. So I'm going to leave those there like that. So everything's pretty much color coded. My Vox comps always stay to this kind of blue color there. And it's just the color the way he sends it to me. So I don't mind leaving it there. So yeah, I keep it like that. All right, the next thing I like to do, because he really had this boosted 8.3, sometimes he has it less, sometimes it's just like to 1 dB up. I don't like that. I like to see my Vox comp at 0. So what I like to do is I see that it's 8.3 is the highest he went. So I grab all my instruments and I bring them down into one group real quick. So it's Command G to group them, and I just bring them down 8.3. And then I delete that group because I ain't gonna need it no more. So that's delete. And then I drop all my Vox comps down that 8.3. So it's just, that one I had to move down because it was at 0. But these ones, I'm going to hold Alt Option and just click them and they drop down to 0. So everything's the same volume now how it was. It's just now they're at 0. And I don't know, that's just how I became accustomed to working in this with Pro Tools. And I just like working that way. So now let's get into the real editing stuff. Now that our session is organized, we got our color codes going, and then we did a couple little labels, which we didn't do too much, and I can just tell everything's where they're at. This is the lead for the verse, and this is the hook lead. So I don't really need to label it too much, but that's pretty much what I would do if needed. But as now, I don't. It's just the ad-libs I wanted to label so I know which one was a deep pitch and not. So we're going to go in and we're going to solo this first track here, and we're going to zoom in quite a bit, and let's listen to it, and you'll hear everything that is wrong at the moment because it's not edited.
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk. Me and my team, we just...
So just for hearing those two lines right there, you can really hear the breath. And you don't want that. You don't want that. You hear a little bit of the headphone bleeding into the microphone. You actually hear a snap in there, which is just too much. And you don't want that. At least I don't want that. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to chop this breath off a little bit. So I'm going to command click to bypass that grid. I'm going to hit A to hit everything off since I have keyboard focus on. Move to the top, hold command to bypass the grid. And I'm going to fade that boy like that. And let's hear how it sounds.
Watching the...
That sounds a lot better. I'm going to just actually take off just a little bit more.
Watching the...
And that sounds great to me. And just keep this part in mind. It's all per taste on this. Each time you go in, you fade, you make an edit, it's all really just your taste. How much breath you feel like needs to be there. If it needs the breaths in the song, leave the breaths or just automate them down a little bit. You don't need to pull them all out, delete them all out, because then it doesn't make it sound real. It doesn't have that human feel to it.
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk.
So you hear this consonant here.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
And that feels like it's a little too much for me, especially once we start getting into the automation phase. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to split this, throw a little fade there and throw a little fade there.
Green, go ahead and green, go ahead.
And that sounds so much better to me. I'm going to actually go even a little more.
Green, go ahead and talk your talk.
Even this T here is just a little too much for my taste. So I'm going to just do that and that.
Talk your talk.
Actually, let's go a little back so we can hear that better.
Head and talk your talk.
Now it almost makes it sound like the S because the T is kind of almost all gone. So let's bring it back just a hair.
Go ahead and talk your talk.
So that sounds great to me. And as you can see, you have all this dead air right there. I'm going to actually bring this up. And you can see all this is just a bleed and just dead air. It's just the space of the room. So let's zoom back in there and let's pull some of that out. So I'm just going to pull all this out and let's fade that in like that.
Talk.
Let's bring it back a little bit so we can get that K.
And talk your talk. Me and
let's see, did she pronounce the K?
talk. Talk. Talk.
I don't think she did. So let's do this. Just for the fun of it, let's cut this off and let's bring this back here to get that K sound.
Talk.
Okay, and let's do this. Let's bring this back this way. Let's do a quick crossfade here. Let's cut this off and let's fade this down quite a bit.
Talk your talk.
And there we go. Now we just made our own little K sound there, which is pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like you can really manipulate stuff, and that's why they call us audio engineers.
Your talk.
And now we got that cool little K instead of it as a snap. So let's zoom back in here and let's get off all this extra space we don't need, because here's the breath right here. So let's cut this breath off in half and let's fade it in. Let's go back.
Talk your talk. Me and my team, we just flow, we sit.
And then you see how it has this little space here. We're going to just throw a crossfade there just so it's smoother. And I like to have this crossfade as well. Like I said, it's equal power mode.
We just feel we sit above the flock.
And then you hear this F sound. To me, it's not too appealing. So if we find another one with an F sound, we can actually replace that one with it. Just kind of like how we made a generic K sound. We'll do that with this F. So for now, I'm just going to mark it. And to mark things, if you're on a laptop or something, you hold the FN key and click enter, or else you have to use the numeric keypad and hit enter, or you can come up here and just click marker. And now you're marking that location. And I'm just going to leave a note and title it replace F sound. And we'll do that. But for now, I'm going to do this, and let's see if this works.
We sit above the flock. Built up.
So it almost works. So we'll just leave it like that for now. And let's cut this off and let's fade that.
Built up. Built a throne with all your stones. We're planning for the fall.
And here's a good F. I actually like the way this F sounds. So let's copy that. It's Command C once you have it selected. And we're going to move back over here to our replace the F sound section. Let's go here. Let's just come in here and let's just paste that bad boy in there like that. Let's bring this back. Okay, so it ends there. Let's bring it back a little more. Let's throw a crossfade here. And let's bring this over. I'm going to cut this off, and I'm actually going to use this little bad boy. It's like a trim, and we're going to bring that down so it can really blend in the right way. So it's kind of like fading up, you know, because this is -7 dB. And let's just do a couple crossfades and see what that sounds like.
Above the flock.
Okay, so it sounds like this guy actually in the beginning is ruining it. So let's do that. Let's bring this back, and let's fade that bad boy up.
Above the flock.
And now we just have, oops, Command Z. And let's bring this back, and let's just fade this guy here.
Above the flock.
And I want to stretch this out. So the way I'm going to do this, and this is what's really cool about detailed editing that I really want to show you guys is we got our F, you know, and it's not long enough. No, we're not going to come up here and use the time compression expansion. We're not going to do anything funky like that. So the way we're going to make this F sound longer is we're going to split it in the middle here. Move this bad boy over. We're going to bring this one over and then this side over, and we're going to do a crossfade. And then we'll fade this up like that. And now our F sound should be longer.
Off the flock. Off the flock.
You hear that? So it's working out for us. So let's actually just fade this bad boy more, and it should be cool.
Off the flock.
Okay, and then I want to just do this. I'm going to highlight the whole thing there, and I want to actually lower the volume on it. I could do it through the Vox comp, or I can actually do the automation on it. But for what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just group that section, and I'm just going to bring the volume down a little bit. And let's hear how that sounds.
Above the flock.
Okay, and then I'm going to come here, and I am going to crossfade that.
Above the flock. Built up.
Cool.
With all your stones, we're planning for the fall.
So then here, we're just going to do another little crossfade, and then...
What?
And then you hear how she has like a little lip smack right there.
What?
So we're going to cut that off, and that breath.
What dance?
Let's move that forward. And then I already hear that I want this little guy up more. This little part of her vocal. So I'm going to just raise that up with that trim tool, and I'm going to crossfade that and crossfade this here.
We're dancing on the wall.
Then we're going to throw a couple crossfades.
The wall. Till
we're going to cut that off, and we're going to fade here.
Till we.
And you hear how that T's a little harsh, so we're going to bring it over.
Till we.
A little more.
Till we rule it all.
And then we can cut all this off. So that's how you really go deep into editing, detailed editing, especially in Pro Tools. You can really go deep like that. So I'm going to play this verse one more time so we can see if we missed anything.
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk. Me and my team, we just feel we sit above the flock. Built a throne with all your stones, we're planning for the fall. We're dancing on the wall, till we rule it all.
Sounds good to me. The only thing that's bugging me is this little T here, and maybe that F that we created, we can actually make it a little bit longer. So I'm going to actually chop this bad boy up a little bit, and then bring that little front end down about a dB, and I'm going to just throw this crossfade back on because it sounded like just too hard there.
Pull it all.
Cool. And where's that F that we created? I believe it's right here. And I actually want to make it a little longer, so I'm gonna bring it back and crossfade it one more time. And
The flock
cool.
built.
All right, so that sounds great. That's exactly what I would do for every single lead vocal. I'd go in each lead vocal and do that, and it cleans everything up. It makes things sound great. So now we're actually gonna do some group edits, which I would love to show you guys. So I'm gonna do that right now. We're going to do that in this chorus section here. And I'm going to do it on this section here because we have a bunch of vocals. We have 4 of them together, and I really want to show you how to group edit stuff. So I know you guys seen in my last video how I went in and aligned stuff up, and I made sure everything was tight. As you can see, this girl had really, really incredible timing. Everything's pretty much dead on. It looks great, except like this is a little bit before. Besides that, everything looks amazing. This one's a little short. This one's a little before. And if you hear it, you'll start hearing those stuff, how they're a little short, a little before. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fix that stuff. So I'm gonna come in here. These look great. I'm gonna throw this crossfade on right here, just because that's how he wanted that comped. We'll fix that later. Let's come in, let's go a little further. And these are the ones that were a little before. So we're going to fix it. We're going to come here and we're going to hold shift, click the colons, because then it'll move it down, hit the B. It'll split it. Same thing over here. We're going to command click, hold shift, hit the colon, hit the B. We're going to grab these two, hold command to bypass, and just nudge it over a little hair there. And then we could fix this one over like that. We can bring this out, crossfade, bring this out, back a little bit, crossfade. And then that looks great. This one's a little short, so we're going to just split it here, and we are going to move this guy over, bring that back, oops, bring that back, and crossfade, but that crossfade's too big, so let's do a little one. That looks great, that looks great. This was the shorty. Let's do that, copy what we've just been doing. So we're following along. We'll split this one too because it's just a hair short, and that hair will bug me. And I know it'll bug, it bugs Chizzy all the time. It says, hey dude, can you tighten everything up a little bit more? And he told me so many times that I actually make sure I tighten everything up before I send him anything. I really clean up the vocals really, really tight for him. So let's go in here and let's bring this guy back. Let's move this one forward and let's just do a crossfade. All right, so that looks good, and I'm pretty sure that's all we went up to that was off. Let's fly through one more time. Yeah, that looks great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to edit these ones as groups. So I'm going to click this one, hold it, and drag down to highlight the 4 there. Just hit Command G, and it's a group, so hit Enter. We don't need to worry about anything else. And let's solo these guys. Have that group. Let's see if I have that group there. Yep, I have the group. Okay, so now every time I click, it'll highlight all 4 of those tracks no matter which one I click. So let's zoom in there. And then we got all these breaths, okay? And then if you remember, we had a lead vocal on the top. Let's see. Do we have a lead vocal on the top? Actually, we don't. It looks like our leads are down here. So with that in mind, which I did not catch earlier, is when I have just 4 vocals like that and there's not really any too many layers, like as you can see here, there's a bunch of layers, but we have the lead right here as well. I like to keep the ones more closer in that he labeled as the lead vocal. So these ones here, how it's 43, 49, those would actually technically be my leads. So what I like to do is I gotta ungroup these. So I'm just gonna open this up and I'm actually gonna delete this out. And I like to pan them 35 and 35, or at least close enough to that. And these are actually going to be my leads. And I like to have them on the top and then my other ones on the bottom there. So then I'm going to group the first 2 together and then the bottom 2 together. That's what I do, just because that's how I like to work. And then these ones I like to keep a little bit of breath, but the ones behind it, I take the breath completely out. There's no point to have that extra breath in your right ears. It's just annoying. It's just a bunch of at like slightly different times, so it sounds super weird. So I just keep the breath on those lead vocals. So all these breaths I'm taking out and I'm just fading it like that. And just something that I personally do is I always have the breath fading in. I never have the breath fading out. And to me, it sounds natural because usually when you start, you don't start off loud. When you breathe, you don't go, and you don't have that loud breath. Sorry if I scared you guys there. You don't have a loud breath. You know, it kind of fades in naturally when you go, like it slowly fades in. It doesn't start loud and then go quiet. It starts quiet, then goes loud. So that's just the way I work. So like this here, I can't tell if this is a breath or not. So I'm actually going to listen to that little section and see what we got. Okay, it's an S sound. We'll just leave it. So then these guys, we'll split those off. Close those out here. Go over. And I'm just kind of doing my best to fly through this, but showing you that you can do some crazy stuff just editing. Okay, so you hear this loud ch sound, I'm going to fade them out because it's too harsh, it's too loud. Even throwing a De-Esser, the De-Esser would just kind of ruin the entire vocal. It'll ruin the whole piece, it'll sound weird. So I'm just going to fade it on all of them, but roughly around the same. And let me actually bring this down because that's super loud. It's actually hurting my ears at the moment. See, and then if you hear it closely, you hear like breaths everywhere around you, like people are breathing on you, and it's kind of scary. Like, you don't want that, man. So let's go in here. Let's cut all this out. And, you know, it's the same shortcut keys. I'm just going in, zooming in with R, T, zooming out with R, hitting B to split.
Screaming color.
Hitting B to split. S to remove everything to the right. A to remove everything to the left. And that's just how I'm working. I'm going to bring that back a little bit because I think I cut a little too much off, at least for my opinion. Let's fade that in. Let's cut this off.
We break the mold. Well,
So let's pull this out. See, and then you can even hear all that don't, like a lot of the bleed. And the one thing that really kept my stuck with me that C minor told me when editing, he goes, you got to remember, dude, is you got to clean these up really well, because if a DJ wants to mix it, do a remix to it, they can't use it. It's unusable with all that bleed in there. Oops, that's not what I want. With all that bleed in there, because they're going to hear that on the record. So you got to clean it up so that's pretty much not there. It's non-existent anymore, but it still sounds great.
mold. Electrical.
And it's usually just in the quiet spot. So he really taught me like really, really well on cleaning this stuff up like this. As you see what I'm doing, like I can't thank that guy enough. He really taught me how to be a better engineer, taking the time to do things the right way, because I know a lot of you guys out there don't do this right now. I know a lot of engineers who's been mixing for a long time and they still don't do this, but you have to. So I got all this edited, so let's hear it back.
We're made of gold with lightning souls. Watches glow in screaming color. We break the mold. We're bright and bold. Electrical. Oh, we're hot-blooded.
And it sounds really cool right there, you know what I'm saying? Like, I understand you can't get all the bleed out, but you can do as best as you can, and that sounds good. But guess what? It's not tight enough, because there's one other thing that C minor taught me too, is you vocaline everything. No matter what it is, you vocaline everything. And basically this plugin's incredible. They use it a lot for voiceover work and stuff for movies, right? And what it does is it lines up everything. So you get your guide track, basically the lead vocal, and then you line it up with the double. So basically the way it works is you highlight this section, you get it, you click capture, and it's going to render it. Then you go underneath it, you switch it to the dub, you capture it. And then you got your settings where you can normal flexibility or give it more flexibility, that high, maximum, and stuff like that. I always keep it on normal and just click a line. So now it's going through and it's finding the peaks or the timing depending on what your setting is. And then you just spot it in and it puts it right back there on the Pro Tools section there. It put it right back there, and it'll be a lot tighter. So then it tightened everything up. So then I'm going to do that with the next ones. So grab it, highlight, go down, and I use colon to go down. And now you just need to capture the dub. You don't need to capture the guide anymore, as long as you keep the same section selected. So make sure, that's why I selected the top one again the second time. And I'll show you why right now. So if I go down, look where this guy's ending at, right there. So I'm going to capture it. I'm going to click align. I'm going to spot it in. For some reason, the selection just kind of moves randomly. So it kind of moved out a little bit. And if you look closely, they should all be the same, but they're not. And that's just the way it renders, and it gets that room to really expand and make everything sound right.
We're made of gold with lightning souls. Watches glow in screaming color. We break the mold. We're bright and bold. Electrical. Oh, we're hot-blooded. We're made of gold with lightning souls. Watches glow in screaming color. We break the mold. We're bright and...
So I'm going to show you guys the difference right now from vocal lining, editing, things like that, compared to how it was. So here's how it was, and then it's going to go into how it used to sound. And let me just move it closer so it just kind of loops over.
We're made of gold with lightning souls. Watches glow in screaming color. We break the mold. We're bright and bold. Electrical. Oh, we're hot-blooded. We're made of gold with lightning souls. Watches glow in screaming color. We break the mold. We're bright and bold. Electrical. Oh, we're hot-blooded.
But you can see, you hear the bleed in the microphone from into the microphone. You hear that it's a little off, just slightly. Like I said, she had incredible timing, but you can hear that it's just a little off here and there. So you really don't want that. So that's why I do that. I vocal line everything. I make sure everything's tight, and we get everything to sit right. So I do that with everything. So everything gets vocal lined, everything gets tighter, so everything sounds correct. So now that we get those done, if we went through every single one, it'll take a long time. It takes me usually about an hour and a half to 2 hours to do stuff like that. So I'm going to leave it right there. But the next thing I'm going to show you guys is strip silence. And that's usually what I do to like backgrounds, ad-libs, and things like that. So actually, I don't think there's any room for strip silence. Let's see. We'll do it to these right here. Let's see what this is. I think this is like another pre-hook lead.
We're made of gold with lightning souls. Watches glow in screaming colors. We break the...
So it's a higher note too. So let's see what we got here.
Made of gold with lightning souls.
Yeah, I don't want to do it on that. Let's see this section here. Let's see what this is. I don't think I got anywhere I can strip silence today. Let me see. I really thought I did, but I guess I didn't. Okay, we'll just do it on this section here, on these ha 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 ha's. All right, cool. So we got that, and to bring up your strip silence, it's Command U, and that brings up the strip silence. And I did a quick demonstration of this on our last lesson in lesson 2. And what it does is there's a threshold slider which you can move, and basically anything below that threshold will get cut off unless you have extract or separate. If you select one of the other two, it does something different. So we want to set our threshold to a cool amount, which is about right there, which you can see that it brings the beginning of the words in there. This is a breath. Actually, let's get that breath out. So let's go a little closer there. And it looks great, you see? So it's going to cut off anything outside of these white boxes it made. So like this is the beginning of the ha-ha-ha's. And then this is just dead air. All this is dead air, and we don't need that. So we're going to set our threshold to like that. And then you could even set the time. So it has to be at least 500 milliseconds big to be noticeable. So if you make it smaller, at 0 milliseconds, then it'll put squares around 0 millisecond stuff, and we don't want that. We want something at least kind of big, so we know it's like an actual word or something. So we're gonna put it like keep it back at 500. Usually I keep it there. Like there's never really been a time where I actually went bigger or smaller. Then you have a pad where you can actually move it, and it'll actually move it out a little bit from what you set the threshold at. So even though the threshold was here, so all this will get cut off, you want to give a little room, and we can just throw a fade. So I'm gonna do like a 50 millisecond pad on there. Actually, let's go a little further because of this one. Let's go right there. 141 looks cool. Even here, that looks great. Even if it gets that little breath, we're gonna have a fade on there anyway, so it doesn't matter if it gets on there or not. Let's go a little closer. And then you have a pad for the ending there, for the end of the clip, which you can put on, and we want a little bit of that room too, so let's go about there. Let's bring that in closer because I want that. Let's get a little more of this pad in there. Actually, let's go back there. And then if you click strip, everything looks fine or decent. We're going to highlight this whole track, and the way you do that is you double click on the outside of the region, and it'll highlight everything in that section, so it does all of it. And we're going to click strip, and it's going to delete all that dead air. I'll accept this first one because of the way the threshold's set and stuff, so it's fine. We'll just do that. But anyways, we're going to highlight the whole clip, and then we're going to click Command F, and now we can set our fade. And I like to do like a 90 millisecond fade, a 90 millisecond fade out. I don't like this curve, so I don't know why it's like that. So I do like to do those curves like that, and I like to just click OK. So it's doing a fade in and fade out automatically, and that's strip silence. So pretty much everything's gone except this right here. And you can really just re-listen and do detail. But I usually use this for like ad-lib stuff, background vocal stuff like A's, yas, okays, whats, yes. And that's usually what I use it for, because there's just one snappy word that you really don't want to spend too much time on. You just want to get all the dead air around it out. So that's pretty much what I do there, is to get that stuff out. And it's not too tough. It just takes a lot of time there. And then I already showed you guys trim a little bit, and that's just to lower stuff. It's this little guy here, looks like a little fader, and it's just basically like your trim knob in like a plugin or even on your mixing console. So you don't need to worry about that guy anymore. And let's get into some mixing now. I'm kind of tired of editing. So let's mix a little bit. So let's go in here and let's see what we got. I'm gonna mix vocals actually. I'm gonna leave the beat how it is because man, the track sounds high quality already. I mean, I could make things a little bit wider and stuff, but that's more advanced things.
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk.
Everything sounds pretty well balanced for the way he sent me the files. As you can tell, nothing's like just a big old brick wall there. So the only thing that bugs me right now is that snaps a little loud.
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk.
So I'll just bring it down just a hair there. Okay, so let's mix this first lead vocal in a little bit. But let me talk about mixing. The main things you use is EQ and compression, and then you can do other cool stuff like crazy effects, processing, and things like that. But your main two tools are EQ and compression. And a lot of people don't understand really how EQ and compression, what EQ really is doing. And what EQ is doing is it's manipulating the frequencies of the vocals. So let me bring out the stock EQ and show you what it is. So you got your frequency range, which is 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, which is 20K. And a lot of people like to bring up their EQ charts or their books and manuals and tell me, well, you know, you got your muddy section at 250 hertz, so you always dip there. You always roll off the low end. You always boost the high end to get some air and things like that. And yes, that's true, but at the same time, it's not. A lot of people like to believe you remove all the bad and you boost all the good. That's true, and it's not. And let me tell you why that's wrong and right at the same time. The reason why is 250 hertz isn't always the muddy section. Like, yes, that's normally the muddy section. Yes, it adds like warmth there and stuff like that to a vocal. But if a vocal's thinned out, for example, listen here.
Watching their eyes go bright green, go.
there's not really any muddiness to her vocals. So why do you want to pull out more of the so-called muddiness and make your vocals sound like this?
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead.
It sounds pretty awful. Let's say we boosted that section.
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead.
And it sounds more full. It sounds better already. And that's boosting this so-called muddy section. You see what I mean? And then a lot of people like to believe, okay, well, you know, the most sensitive part is between 2 and 5K, 2 and 6K type of deal. And it's like, yes, that's true. But at the same time, it's not. If you have it balanced, your song, you have the frequencies all balanced, then that's fine. Like, you can have a lot of stuff in that area. You just have to have it balanced. It really depends on what you're working with. But the main parts is you do have lows, you do have mids, and you do have highs. And usually your lows are considered between like 200 hertz and below. Your mid section is usually around, I'm going to say, well, you can say 200 hertz to about 3K. That's usually the mid section. Then not, or even a little higher than that could be considered mids, which is usually the high mids. And then you have your highs, which is higher than that, 3Ks and up. But it's usually like this. It's usually lows is 200 and down. Then you have your low mids, which is like 200 to, I'm going to say, 800. And then from 800 to 2.5, 3K is mids. And then you have high mids, which is 3K to 8K, and 8K and up is your high frequencies. And that's how I see it as. And I like to work in that way where you separate in these 5 bands because that's the norm. And that's how I got used to it because I've always used Pro Tools since like Pro Tools 5. And I'm just very used to seeing it that way. And then a lot of people like to mix like, oh, okay, well, I'm pulling out these hertz because it's this note. These are the bad notes. It's like, dude, don't work that way because now you're just pulling out a lot of stuff that's supposed to be there. Like people are saying, well, I'm pulling out the F note because there's no F note in this song. Well, dude, you're just ruining your vocal. Like, I don't know. I heard people doing that and they're telling me, it's like, oh my gosh, like, what are you doing? You're really ruining these vocals. So don't do that. Don't do that. The way you need to mix, the way you need to see how mixing works is mix with feeling, man. Mix with your taste, mix with your gut. If you think it sounds good, then it probably sounds good. If you think it's sounding awful, it probably sounds awful. Like, use your ears, really think, or don't even think, just feel and listen to what you're doing. So, like, which I took away from Dave Pensado watching his Pensado's place is he says he mixes with energy. So if you feel like the track needs more energy and excitement, he says he boosts around like 2K and stuff like that to add that energy, which you can do that with like adding distortion. And I feel like whenever you add distortion, it boosts that mid section there and it gives it more energy. So that's kind of his philosophy in mixing, is with energy and stuff. And that's really cool. And I like the way that works. And I started using that and that helped me get really, really good. So that's what I advise, is mix with energy. So the way we're going to work with this vocal here, let's make this vocal sounds cool with the track. So basically, don't solo it. You can solo it if you're really like dialing something in, then that's fine. I don't mind soloing. I solo all the time. I don't know why a lot of people are against it. I know they say you have to hear everything together, not just by itself. To be honest, I solo stuff all the time when I mix, and it's no problem. I still make great mixes. So yeah, just solo if you need to solo, man. Don't worry about it. Don't overthink stuff. Just mix.
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk. Me and my team, we just flew, we sit above the flock. Built a throne with all your stones, we're planning for the fall. Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk. Me and my team, we just flew, we sit above the flock. Built a throne with all your stones, we're planning for the fall. Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk. Me and my team, we just flew, we sit above the flock.
So I'm going to play a little more bypass a little bit, and you can already hear that the voice has a little more fullness, a little more clarity, and it just sounds better already.
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk. Me and my team, we just flew, we sit above the flock.
And it sounds great. It sits better with the track. It's sitting on top of the vocal sound. That's just using a little bit of EQ there to make it work. I'm gonna actually solo it so you can hear the two difference.
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk. Me and my team, we just flew, we sit above the flock. Built a throne with all your stones, we're planning for.
And it sounds great, and you can tell I actually boosted that muddy section, as people like to say. You know, so I'm actually doing a lot of boosting here. I'm actually not cutting much, and I feel like the vocal was recorded really, really well. I'm sure it was recorded like on a Neumann or something, really top of the line gear, so it sounds great. It was already a great sounding vocal. I just added a little more clarity to it just so it sits right with these vocals. So I like to do it that way. I'm going to add a little compression so you can see how I'm going to work with compression. And on this vocal, actually, I'm going to do something a little bit lighter. I'm going to just throw in the CLA2A, and just because I want to just light compression on this vocal.
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk. Me and my team, we just flew, we sit above the flock. Built a throne with all your stones, we're planning for the fall. Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk. Me and my team, we just flew, we sit above the flock. Built a throne with all your stones, we're planning for the fall. Watching their eyes go bright green.
And it really makes the vocal pop out and just sit comfortably in the mix. Like, you can hear the quiet stuff, you can hear the loud stuff, everything just sits right. And that's pretty much it. And the reason why I use the LA2A, because I highly recommend it for you guys, especially starting off to mix, is you got two knobs, man. You got a gain knob, you got a peak reduction knob. And all you gotta do is use the peak reduction to make sure it's coming down a little bit, just doing a little bit of squish in there, and then just add a little bit more makeup gain just to keep the level exactly to what it was, so you're not crushing the vocal all crazy. So that's why I want to bust that bad boy out like that. I'm gonna move a little different here. I'm actually gonna mess with these pads a bit. And like even something like this is what I'm talking about, is I'm actually gonna mix these soloed so you guys can even hear the difference while I'm doing it. So I'm just gonna keep that same section highlighted, and I'm just going to add a little EQ, a little compression. So as you can hear, as soon as I boosted the high end, when it goes down, to me, that bugs me. It doesn't sound right. So I want to duck that guy back in there. So I'm going to grab this band and I'm going to move it over. I'm going to do like a little peak and I'm going to pull that down. Still a little harsh for my ear. Let's see, let's find it. See, I'm not finding it. So this is what I'm going to do. And this is a great trick I actually learned from watching an Andrew Shep's video when he was mixing, is on a Mac, you hold Control and Shift while you set your Q, your bandwidth first. I'm actually going to set it about there. You hold Control and Shift and you click the frequency band, and it's going to do this cool little thing like the fab filters do. So you're just filtering out that little section there, and you can really just hear that frequency. And that's exactly what I was looking for. So I'm going to actually roll off just a hair of this low end. To me, I don't like it. It's not tasteful in my opinion. I'm going to actually go to 18 dB.
Sit above the flock, built up.
And I'm just going to boost this all at the end over here just to add a little body to it.
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your.
Right, and then let's add a little compression just to finish this guy off. And I'm just going to use the stock compressor this time so I can explain a little bit more on that guy. That's the Dynamic 3 compressor limiter. And when you got that guy out, is you got your ratio, knee, attack, release, gain, threshold. And if you guys know a little bit more of compression, is you set your thresholds. Whatever goes over that threshold, it's going to bring that down, whatever your ratio is down. So if you have it at 3 to 1, it's going to bring 3 dB down to 1. So Yeah, every 3 dB up, it's going to bring it down 1. That's what it means. So then you got your release is how long it takes for it to like fade out type of deal, and your attack is how long it takes to actually come in and turn on. Then you got your knee, and that just makes it a little softer, like, oh, it's not going to act as aggressively. Then you got your makeup gain.
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk. Me and my team, we just flew, we sit above the flock. Built a throne with all your stones, we're planning for the...
And I'm going to solo it so you can hear it while I bypass the compressor. So you hear it when the compressor is off, it really sounds like the sound actually fades in the background. And to me, that's just too much fading back there. So that's why I threw the compressor on, so it's a more low leveled out. And then I just really EQ'd it just to calm it down and really work with the track and the vocals.
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk. Me and my team, we just flew, we sit above the flock. Built a throne with all your stones, we're planning for the fall.
So it sounds great, right? I like it. I think it sounds cool, at least for now. I'm not doing anything exciting, like going crazy with it. I'm not adding any cool effects yet, which you actually can hear in the final mix. I added quite a bit of effects, delays, and things like that. But I'm not going to get into that today because, well, we are doing basic mixing, man. We're not doing anything crazy, advanced, or anything further than just EQ and compression for today. I am going to bring in a De-Esser, though. And I really want to talk to you about a De-Esser. And basically what a De-Esser is doing, a De-Esser is just like the same thing as a compressor, but it just brings down certain frequencies. So like I said, the compressor is bringing down the track overall, everything, and then it's bringing everything down from a certain threshold and things like that. But what the De-Esser does, it just brings down at that frequency. So right here I have it set at 7K, and then if I bring this down, that's what it's bringing down.
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk.
So it's 7K and everything it's bringing down. If I click high frequencies only, it's only doing the higher stuff.
Built a throne with all your stones, we're planning for the fall. Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk.
And that's what De-Essers do. So it's nice to have it, especially when there's a lot of sounds and like that. It's just too much sometimes, and the compression's not, well, you don't want to use the compressor because you already have your compressor leveled, and you don't want to go in and be fading all that stuff. It's just a little too much. You just do what I did, real detailed like that. You don't want to go in and real automate all that like you can. It just takes a long time. So you throw a De-Esser on there and you just fix that real fast.
Go ahead and talk your talk. Me and my team, we just flew, we sit above the flock. Built a throne with all your stones, we're planning for the fall. Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk. Me and my team, we...
And the one thing you need to keep in mind with the De-Esser, though, is you can't do too much of it. If you do way too much of it, then you're going to make the artist start sounding like they got a lisp. And yeah, that's kind of messed up. So don't do that. You know, don't make your artist sound like they got a lift. So kind of pull back on that De-Esser. And if the De-Esser is really not working, then yeah, you just got to go in there, man, and fix it with editing, or else it's going to be too harsh on the ears with that because that's just a lot of sibilance in your ears, and it just hurts your ears after a while. It's just real harsh. So you want to kind of pull back on that. So basically, guys, that's all I would really do. If I'm going into this section, like I said, I pan them about 35-35. This is the last thing I want to show you guys, is doing these group EQing stuff. Actually, I'm going to show you two group EQing stuff. I'm going to show you this section here where I got my leads and my backgrounds, but then I want to show you this where it's like a gang vocal type of deal. Watch.
What do we have to lose? Tangerine sunset.
Okay, and you can hear like it's kind of wide, but it's kind of not. It's real thin. So I'm actually going to show you how to make it a little bit wider with just some EQ and compression. So we got these right here. And as you can hear, it's just really harsh, like on the ears already. So like I showed you before, is I grouped them in this little section to VO12, Vox Comp 1, 2, and I'm sending them here. So I actually can EQ them all at once at one time. Look at that. I can just use one EQ and I can EQ all four of these bad boys. So watch this. So you can EQ all four of them at once. So since they're all the four the same note, you can just slap one EQ on there, bring it down, fix that bad boy. And let me stop right there and just explain what I just did. So you see how I was going to throw that low pass filter on there, and that's right here. And I was going to roll off the high end to really make it sound not as bright like that. But then I turned it off and I went to the high frequency. The reason why I did that, because I'm mixing with filling. So I was like, okay, it doesn't need any highs there. So I've, by instinct, just went to that low pass filter and was like, wait, I don't want to take off everything. So let me go to the high frequencies and roll it off. And that's what I'm saying. It's just mixed by feeling, man. It doesn't really matter what you're using as long as it sounds right. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I would do to those four vocals. But the thing is after I mixed them like that as a group, and let's say I start hearing stuff in the hard left and hard right one, which is these two, hard left, hard right, then I'd actually slap an EQ or something on those individual tracks like I did on the lead vocal up here, and I would EQ those a little bit more. So basically I would do this as like a broad EQ, and then these ones I'd go in and fine tune it with another one. So that's how I see it as, you know, it's just doing detailed work. And that's what I'm going to do here is I already got something going on, and that's the way the session was sent to me. It's down here, and I'm going to go in, I'm just going to fix what I like and what I don't like. And to do this section, I'm actually going to solo them all. Wanna why? Because I can. That's why I'm going to do it.
What do we have to lose? Tangerine sunsets from like sipping. What do we have to prove?
And you can hear that they're panned hard right and hard left, but they're not really out there in hard right, hard left. Like, you can't hear them that well. So what I do is I either grab a compressor or an EQ, and I'd boost up these high ends over here to make them a little bit wider.
What do we have to lose? Tangerine sunsets from like sipping. What do we have to prove? What do we have to lose? Tangerine sunsets from like sipping. What do we have to prove?
And it just pushes it a little more out there, just a hair more. That makes it sound a lot better. And then I just throw another compressor on there if necessary, which I feel like it needs it.
What do we have to lose? Tangerine sunsets from like sipping. What do we have to prove?
And it keeps it out there. So I do that to the two hard right and hard left ones there. But I actually would have to go through and see which ones are doing what, because you got those super high ones, then you got these ones.
What do we have to?
Which is just a lower note. And actually I'd bring it down on these ones because those high ones, I like them tucked in the background.
What do we have to lose? Tangerine sunsets.
See, so I'd put it on these two down here because these two are the same thing.
What do we have to lose? Tangerine sunsets from back sipping. What do we got to prove?
So as you can see, as soon as I bypassed them, then they just got like back tucked in inside that group vocal. So if I bring them back out, let's see if I can do this.
What do we have to lose? Tangerine sunsets from back sipping. What do we got to prove? What do we have to lose? Tangerine sunsets from back sipping. What do
And like I said, as soon as I bypass them, they get pushed back inside the group vocals like that. And once I enable it, they pop out. So that's what I would do. I'd go through each individual, well, not each individual one, but the ones that I want to hear more and really make them stand out more. Like these middle ones, you already can hear them fine. I probably wouldn't even touch them. I probably just bring them up or down a little bit. Maybe slap an EQ just to pull off some of the lower sound, or add more of the warmth, the mid section there, that muddy section, because for some reason, she sounds great by adding that muddy section in there. I would probably pull out some of the highs so they're not stepping on top of these guys here, the Audio 13 Dupe 1, just to make it stand out more. And that's what I would do. So you guys can really try that out on your track, so you could make group vocals sound a lot wider than what they really are. And it's cool. It's a lot of fun. It's great fun, man, when you really get deep into it. And the last thing is we had these ad-libs, which I would show you how I would EQ ad-libs. Is I got this ad-lib here, right? And it's a little hey. You know, you can't really hear it. Let's raise that bad boy up. And you can't hear him still. Like, I already boosted up 7. You can still, like, he's just back there. And it's like, wow, that's so tiny. So, yeah, I'd actually get an EQ, stop the EQ on there. I'd roll off a lot of these lows because we actually don't need quite a bit in this hey. Boost this up and some highs. Actually, nope, that's not helping me here. So let's do this. Let's roll off this. And let's give it more like a telephony effect. So now we can hear them, right? So we got that hey, and it's just, oh, and then we have a couple more. So basically I do this, what I just did to these two guys, because you can't even hear these guys now, right? Like, we have 3 hays there, and it sounds like we only have 1. So let's do this. Let's grab this EQ, let's copy it, and to copy it is to hold Alt and drag and drop it, and see what it sounds like. And they're still tiny like that. So remember, like I said, is boost some of these highs and see what that gives us. That was fun, right? So we got that going like that. Hard left, hard right, and then we got this one dude there. And it still sounds super tiny. So then we have to add that compressor, and let's see if that compressor pops it out. Because here's the secret, guys. Not only is the compressor squishing things from top to bottom, but it's also keeping things tight in its place. So it's putting things in like a box, like left to right. So that's what that's doing. Hey, I can hear the one in the right a little bit more. Let's see if we can just boost this guy up. You see what I mean? So it's starting to make it bigger. So what I would do is I tweak the EQ a little bit more, probably add some reverb to that middle one, and that'll really make these two left and right ones stand out. And then of course adding some with some delay. And you can start hearing things like that. But alright guys, this video went on for quite a little bit longer than I expected. You know, it's a lot to talk about. I hope this helped you guys a lot, you know, so just keep in mind when you work with like big tracks, like sessions like this, as you can tell, it goes already to 74, and that's not even the end of it, because we still got a couple more auxiliary tracks to make, which is like distortions, another delay, like, because this is set at a 1/4 note delay right now. We might want to do an 1/8 note delay, a slap delay. We might want another reverb, a different type of reverb to play around with. So that's a couple more extra tracks. Then we might want to do another kind of thing to really make things sound awesome, like some kind of weird effect, like a ghost effect or something. So you got to make more tracks for that. So keep in mind, you really want to organize your session. As you can tell, bass, drums, percussion, strings or horns, pianos, or keys, synths and effects and things like that, your vocals. Really color code your tracks, make them organized, and it helps you move a lot faster, so you can just fly through the tracks when you get to big sessions like this or even bigger. And don't forget, when you edit stuff, keep things tight. You know, like I said, a DJ is going to probably want to make a remix of one of your songs, but they don't want all that bleed, man. So
Watching their eyes go bright green, go ahead and talk your talk. Me and my team, we just float, we sit above the flock.
you know, you see, we created a K, we switched up an F sound to make it sound smoother, which I'll play it with the music and it sounds a lot more natural.
We just float, we sit above the flock.
You see? So, you know, you can do things like that. You're an audio engineer, man. You're a mixing engineer. You can manipulate audio. That's what you can do. So make sure you do that. You know, keep things sounding tight, like what we did here in this group vocal section for the chorus, you know. We edited everything. We made words longer. We shortened words and stuff. We fixed the consonants, those breaths we took out. You know, we made things sound good. Then we vocalined everything. You guys probably don't have Vocaline. I highly recommend it. Get it. It's a must-have plugin. The project one is the one I use all the time, Vocaline Projects. I believe it's only 99 bucks. Excuse me, guys. I believe it's only 99 bucks. Get it. It's a dope plugin. I use it every single mix, every single day. It's a great investment. Get that bad boy so you can do things and make things sound even tighter than what they are. And then lastly, guys, I hope mixing came a little more understanding, where don't be scared to do what you feel is right, you know. Don't believe that you have to remove the bad and only add the good. Don't believe that you always have to pull out the mud and add air and do this. Mix with the feeling, guys. Mix with the energy. Make things sound good. If it sounds good to you, it probably does sound good. Yes, you can always send it out to someone to get some feedback, because everybody hears music differently. But make sure you know, check your mixes on some other headphones or in your car. That's the best thing to do. You know, just mix with feeling, check it, make your adjustments, mix again. You know, that's the absolute best thing you can do. Don't follow these diagrams and these books on mixing music. Have fun. Have a lot of fun in working with your music, because that's what it's all about, man. At the end of the day, it's about having fun, and you're really gonna love it. So just that's all I can say today, guys, about that. So the last thing I would say is, you know, subscribe to my channel. You know, check out my other videos, my how to use plugins videos, the plugins in depth. Those are cool. I did API 550, 1176, the SSL channel. I just did one on the De-Esser by Slate. All cool stuff, man. Check out my other videos on how to use Avid Pro Tools. I'll have that template video out tomorrow on how to create your own templates. So if you have to send stuff out and things like that, or color coding, if you forget your color pattern, you can just pull it in like I did. Also follow my guys, man. Follow Chizzy, follow C Minor. That's your boy Chizzy, or your boy Chizzy.com. Follow C Minor, and that C Minor is the key. Super cool guys. They always have some great stuff to say and are retweeting some cool stuff all the time. So Twitter, Instagram, I believe they're on Snapchat. Check them out. They're awesome dudes. Tune in next week when I go live again. Next week I'll be doing working with MIDI. So I'm going to bring in some virtual instruments here, and I'll show you how to use the tools and stuff like that. It'll be some fun stuff. You guys will enjoy it. I know I enjoy working with MIDI. It's a little slow in Pro Tools, so I don't really I don't prefer to work with MIDI in Pro Tools. I do that more in Logic or whatever if I do it. But anyways, that's what I'm gonna go over next week, is working with MIDI and doing like Pro Tools instruments. So I'm gonna be using Expand in Pro Tools and stuff like that, and you know, so you guys should be having fun with that stuff. But all right, guys, hope you enjoy. If you have any questions, go ahead, feel free to leave a comment below. I don't mind. I'll get back to you guys. Shoot me an email if you need to. Shoot me an email, leave me a comment, follow me on Instagram or Twitter. You can send me a message there. That's fine too. So enjoy, guys. Have a great rest of your night, and I will be back next week with this, and I will be having fun with you guys again. All right, guys. Keep creating music. Take care.